Very good afternoon, everyone. What were we discussing in the previous session? So we started off understanding the MVC architecture, right? So what do you mean by MVC architecture? What does MVC stands for? Model View Controller Architecture. So what do you mean by a model? What is the duty of a model? Sorry? So model is always interacting with database. So what is the duty of the view? Sir, view always interacts with the browser. What is the duty of the controller? So it has to enable the communication between model and view. Right? In other words, it means it is controlling the flow of application. It is controlling the flow of the application. I hope you are able to understand this. So, model, view and control. So, I guess we tried writing a program using the model view controller architecture, if I am not wrong. Correct? So, let us see, I will not be writing the entire code anyways, but in case if I now want to write a model view controller program, in order to insert some data in the table, what will be the program architecture is something that I will write. In other words, only the file structure is what I will talk about, so that you will have a better clarity, right? Yes. So, if I just have to talk about, so maybe let us assume there is one file called as the add.jsp. So what is the duty of add.jsp? It is going to collect some information. So maybe some information it is going to collect, and there will be an option called as the add button. There is an option called as the add button. So as soon as I click on this add button, I will have one servlet to be called. So first and foremost, you need to understand, I need to take this data, insert this data into the table. Will you agree with me? So this is my table in which I want to insert the data. So I will have one file here which I will call it as model.java. Let's assume I'm calling it as model.java. What will model.java do? Model.java will go to the table. It is going to insert the data, and whatever is the response, it will get back. Whether data is inserted or no, number of rows affected is what it is going to give us back. I hope you are able to understand this. Right. Now, tell me, I have a model interacting with the database. I have a add.jsp which is interacting with the browser. Now, don't you feel whatever data is there in add.jsp, I have to give it to model.java? Hello? So, for that, I will write one class which I will call it as a servlet class called as add servlet.java. Add servlet.java will be called when I click on the add button. Whatever details I have, A, B, C, let us assume A, B, C, it is going to collect, and then it is going to give the values A, B, C to model.java. Model.java will insert, it will either get 0 or 1. Based on 0 or 1, model.java is going to give me back a 0 or 1. If it is 0, I will call failure. If it is 1, I will call success. Right? This is what we do usually. So let us assume the three information whatever I have, A, B, C. Let us assume it is a name, email and mobile number. Let us assume the details are name, email and mobile number. So serial number is an auto-generated value. Let us assume so. Correct? Now my question is, when I am entering the details, ABC when it is given to me, how is that I am dealing with the data here? Sir, very simple, sir. You will say here as insert into, let us assume the table name is employee, values as question mark, question mark, question mark. This is what you would write. Will you agree with me? When I write it like this, you need to understand how is that I am sending the value A, B, C. Whatever A I have got, I am sending it. B I have got, I have sent it. C I have got, I have sent it. So, in other words, maybe if I just have to tell you how this data is collected, maybe there is one method called as the add method, which is accepting the parameters A, B and C. Let us assume like this. Now, when I am sending A, B and C data, tell me here, when you collected A, B and C, was it an object? No, sir. When you collected ABC here in the servlet, is it an object? No. Is it an object in model.java? In model.java also it is not object, sir. ABC individually I am collecting. Which means, don't you feel in this approach, I am not following object oriented approach. I am dealing with primitive data. To overcome this, what I can do is, I can say here, I will create one class called as employee, which will have variables, let's say A, B and C. Name, email and mobile number only. So based on A, B and C data, whatever I have here, add servlet. It will take A, B and C. Then it is going to create an object E. When it is creating an object E, I will not be passing A, B and C, I will pass E. Now am I dealing with objects in my interaction? Yes, now it makes sense that yes, I am following a object. Alright. So now for this, whatever model.java I have written, one thing I want to understand is this model.java, whatever I have written here, maybe it has to follow some standards of writing the code, and that standard of writing the code, I will create one interface. And I will say model.java implements the interface, and whatever it is there here, this I will call it as model DAO.java, and this is model DAO IMPL.java. So why I am trying to show this to you is it is the same model view architecture or model view controller architecture only. Only thing is, in model it is not one single file. My model is a collection of files. All these are my model files. I hope you are able to understand this. Hello? Yes? So because some of you may have a question, sir, model view controller correct, but whatever the project that we are working on, in that model view controller is there, DAO is also there, sir. DAO is also there in our DAO design pattern, is also there in our project. Will you agree with me? The reason is, this is how we are constructing a project. So this becomes my controller, and maybe let us assume there is one more file which I will call it as success.html. Then this all these are my view files. So any file in your project, when you are going to write the code, it should be among one of this. It should either be a view, controller or a model. I hope you are able to understand this. Hello? Any confusion here? I hope there is no confusion, right? So can we go ahead? So model view controller, I hope there is no confusion in the model view controller and how to write the code related to model view controller. Yes? I guess you have gone through the previous videos, or somebody, Friday, Thursday, I could see there were a lot of people absent on Thursday also. So I hope you have gone through, I hope till here there is no confusion in that case. Yes? So this brings us to the end of JEE. Advanced Java is what I can say. Because whatever the next things that we have, we call it as frameworks. Hibernate and Spring. So before I actually get into the Hibernate and the Spring frameworks, there are a couple of topics which I wanted to cover before that. For example, the design patterns, right? Design pattern, have you learned, is it completed to you in your core Java sessions? Something called as a factory design pattern, singleton design pattern. Is it over? No? Okay. So these two design patterns is what I wanted to discuss about, and then we will get into the Hibernate concepts. Right? Okay. So what is a design pattern? What is a design pattern? Yes, please. What is a design pattern? DAO design pattern we have learnt. So why did we come across using something called as a design pattern or a DAO design pattern? Sorry? Sir, before using DAO design pattern, was your code organized? My code was not organized before the DAO design pattern, sir. So writing the DAO design pattern, I tried to organize my code properly. In the same way. So what was the problem there? Code not being organized. So you tried to organize the code by following a design pattern. So any design pattern, why is it used? It is used for a certain problem. A problem which can be common. Common problems have common solution. Both of you, if you are not interested, you can move. Right? So common problems have common solution, and that common solution is only a design pattern. Common solution is only called as a design pattern. So MVC architecture, we also call it as MVC design pattern. What is the use of MVC design pattern, sir? Assume that you are writing some code and the control is not going to the right file. You are in login, but the control is going to logout page. Then whose problem is it? Is it the problem of your front end? Is it the problem of your model? Sir, control is going to a different file. The problem is with the controller, sir. I hope you are able to understand, which means you can locate your problems easily. You can locate your problems easily if you have a proper design pattern in place. So in the same way, there are a couple of problems that programmers came across, and for each of those problems, they had a design pattern in a place. I hope you are able to understand this. So if I have to talk about first example, let me give you a small example here. Let me assume I have one interface. I have one interface which I will call it as a vehicle interface. There is an interface called as a vehicle. Sir, what is there inside this interface called as a vehicle, sir? Maybe there is one method called as drive method. there is a method called as the drive method. So what type of method is present inside an interface? Public abstract method. Is it compulsory that the interfaces should only have public abstract methods? What else can your interfaces have? Default methods, static methods, and also it can have variables. Right? So one of those methods it is having, how are you saying it is a public abstract method? Sir, because you did not write the body, you put a semicolon in the end. I hope you are able to understand this. Okay. There is a class called as the vehicle class, which has a public abstract method called as the drive method. There is a public abstract method called as the drive method. And now, I am going to say there are few classes. The first class that I have is a class called as bike. One more class that I have is a class called as car, and maybe one more I will call it as lorry. Okay. Okay. Lorry drivers. Okay. So I have a bike, car and a lorry. And lorry drivers are also making huge money outside, man. YouTube 5 lakhs per month and all of it. Sorry? Anyways. So I have a class called as bike, car and lorry. But will you agree with me, all bike, car or lorry, whatever I am writing here, they all belong to a type called as vehicle? Which means now I will say bike implements vehicle, car implements vehicle, and also lorry implements vehicle. Right? Okay, sir, I have all these classes implementing the vehicle class. What is that I am going to do inside this class, sir? Obviously, if I am implementing the vehicle class, vehicle interface, I should either give the body for the unimplemented methods, or I should declare the classes as abstract. So I don't want to declare them as abstract. I will give the body for the methods. Which is the method? Drive method. So all the classes will give the body for this method called as the drive method. Once I give the body for all these classes, I now want to execute the program and then check the output. So for this, let me resize this and put it to one corner. So I'll go to my Eclipse here. Okay. So I have Eclipse here. I'll create one project in this, maybe I will call the new project as Java project. I'll tell you all this design pattern is nothing related to advanced Java. These are all core Java concepts. So I will call the name of the project as demo. Project with the name already exists. Okay. Demo 1 I will say. Then module info and all of it I don't need. I will simply say it here as finish. So I have my project called as demo 1, in which I will write one package called as com.tab.interface I will say. int I will say. Invalid package name. Int is interfaces only I'll say, because int is a keyword again, so it is saying it cannot be allowed. Okay, so I have created an com.tab.interfaces. Inside this I will now create an interface called as the vehicle interface. Okay, sir, vehicle interface is created. What is there inside this? Inside this I simply have void drive method. Right, void drive method is what I have. Okay, sir. After this, there is one more package inside, I mean in a different class. So com.tab.classes I will write. The name of the class is bike class, and the interface I will say it is implementing the vehicle interface. So I will write it, I will finish it. So you can see I have a class called as the bike which implements the vehicle. In the same way, in the same package com.tab.classes, I will now create a new class called as the car which implements the vehicle interface. I will finish it, and also there is one more class called as the lorry class. So lorry also implements the vehicle is what I will say. Then I'll finish it. So you can see all the three classes I have. Maybe one main class also I want. So I'll right click. I'll say a new class is what I want. In a package com.tab.launch. The name of the class I will write it as main. I will now finish it. So you can see there is a class called as the main class, in which I will include the main method. So now first and foremost thing, I will go to the bike class. I am going to say, boss, bike class has to override the drive method. Maybe some message I will write inside the bike class. I am going to write some message inside the bike class where I will say system.out.println bike rides at 60 kmph. Right, 60 kilometers per hour. In the same way, I will just copy this. I will go to the car and I will say here as car drives at 75, okay. Car drives at 75 kilometers per hour. Lorry, here I will simply write lorry drives at 70. If they are sleeping, 90. 100 also they will go. Right, anyway, some number. Right. So, lorry drives at 90 kmph. So, all these I now want to display. I want to display these messages. So, how will I display these messages? I will go to the main method. In the main method, I am now going to say I want to create an object of bike. So, I will say new bike class object. New bike is going to give me an object of vehicle. So, I will call it as vehicle 1, which is of type vehicle. Can I write it like this? I will have to import it. What does it mean? So, it is a class object. Who is referring to it? Interface type reference. So, it is an implementing class object referred by an interface type. Is it permitted? What is it called as? Polymorphism. I hope you are able to understand this. In the same way, I will just write here as vehicle type vehicle 1, vehicle 2 now. Vehicle 2 is equals to new car. I will have to import the car. So, in the same way, I will just copy this completely, paste it below. I will say new lorry. Vehicle 3 I will say. Import the lorry class. Clear? Once I have created vehicle 1 object, I will say vehicle 1 dot drive. In the same way, I will just copy this. I will paste it multiple times, and I will say vehicle 2 dot drive, vehicle 3 dot drive. So what is that I am doing here? I am saying, boss, I have created a bike object, I am calling the bike to drive. I have created a car object, asking the car to drive. I have created a lorry, asking the lorry to drive. So if I now try to save my code, if I try to save my code, and if I try to execute this code, what is happening? Bike drive, sorry. I have got the output correctly by saying bike rides at 60, car drives at 75, lorry rides at 90. I have got it correctly. Any problem here? Sir, there is no problem in the output, sir. Will you agree with me? But one question I have. See, look at the program. When you try to explain, or when you try to give your code for somebody to execute, will you agree? We'll give the main method. We'll suppose this is the main method, execute it. Correct? Look at your main method. What information is there? All information is there here only, sir. All information is there here only. What information? In this entire application, what are the various classes I have? What are the various interfaces I have? All the information in just the screen you can see. In the entire program, what is the interface that you have? Vehicle. That is visible already. What is the classes you have? Bike, car, lorry. Every information is visible, sir. Don't you feel you need to give some confidentiality of your code? Your code should be kept confidential. Hello? Assume that you want to buy a mobile. Right? You will go to a store, you will ask, hey, I want a mobile. So as soon as you ask the mobile, will the storekeeper start manufacturing a mobile in front of you? Bring that camera, bring this RAM, you add it, or bring this hard disk and put it here. Will the manufacturer start building the mobile there? Then, sir, mobile is already built, mobile is already ready, sir. He will just bring that mobile, give it to me. Will you agree with me? Hello? Yes or no? So, one thing is, you should not be creating an object wherever you want. There should be somebody who is going to create an object, and you will just use that object wherever you want. One way you need to maintain confidentiality of your code. You cannot tell anybody or everybody what is the various classes you are creating. What are the various names of the classes? See, here it is okay. Just imagine a application that you are building for a finance sector, for a bank or whatever. You cannot let go away such small information because it is always important. For example, we perform something called as hashing. Till today, how are you storing the data in the database? Whatever data you have, same data will be stored in the database. Will you agree with me? You would have gone to various websites and you would have entered your information there. Yes or no? For example, Amazon sale is going on. You would have gone to Amazon while you are making a purchase. You would have added your ATM card number. Imagine if Amazon is taking that information, putting the same information in the table. If somebody can hack Amazon's database, don't you feel so many details or so many ATM cards he'll be able to get? Hello? You may be, sir, ATM card let him take. Sir, OTP will come to my mobile only. There are some websites where without OTP you can make purchases. Right? So, don't you feel your details are not safe in case the way in which you are writing the code? So for this, people follow something called as encryption, or also we call it as hashing. So any information that is given, if I am entering AKHIL, it will not be saved same as AKHIL in the database, but it will be encrypted and it will be stored in the database. It will be encrypted and stored in the database. When you have to bring back the data, you will decrypt and get it back. You will encrypt and store, decrypt and bring it back. So now the question is, assume that for doing this encryption and decryption also, there are so many inbuilt classes. So many options are already available. Imagine whatever that encryption class I am using. Imagine me creating an object of that encryption class here. It is an inbuilt class, no? Everybody will have access to an inbuilt class. He can also call that class, pass any data, and he will be able to access your database. What I am basically trying to tell you is whenever you want to create any object for any class, you should not be creating the objects like this so that it is visible to everybody. This object, this class is there. This object, this class is there. This object, this class is there in the code. It should not be visible to everybody like that. So in order to make sure, right, in order to make sure it is not visible to everybody, I will remove this new bike, new car, new lorry. I will remove away this new bike, new car and new lorry. And then what will you do, sir? I will write one class. Maybe I will write this class here. I'll write like I'll say a new class is what I want. What is the name of this class, sir? See, there is one place where all my objects are manufactured. Right? Whether it is a car object, bike object or lorry object, there is one place where it is manufactured, and whatever this place is there, I will call it as vehicle factory. I will call it as vehicle factory. So this is a factory where all the objects are manufactured. So where will I write it? I will write it inside com.tap.factory. I will write it inside com.tap.factory. I hope you are able to understand this. Okay, sir. Now I will go inside this com.tap.factory. What is there inside this com.tap.factory, sir? There is one method for creating the objects in the factory. So I will say the method is create vehicle. I have a method called as create vehicle. What will this create vehicle do, sir? See, whatever this create vehicle method is there, that is the method I will ask. I will say here, hey, create vehicle method, can you please create a bike and give me? Create vehicle, can you please create a car and give me? Create vehicle, can you create a lorry and give me? Who is asking? The main method. So, when I am saying create a bike, create a car, create a lorry, don't you feel I am sending some string as an input? So, your factory vehicle factory will now expect a string vehicle type. It will expect a string vehicle type. What is the type of the vehicle? I will now have to say here. So for now I will maybe write it as void. It is not returning anything, let us assume. Okay, sir. Tell me now. In the main method, I now want to call this create vehicle method. But while I am trying to call this create vehicle, I don't want to create an object of vehicle factory. Directly I want to create. How can I create it? Sir, you need to declare this method as a static. So I will go to the main method. I will say here vehicle 1 is equals to vehicle factory dot create vehicle. I guess I need to make that method as public so that it should be visible to anybody outside the package. So here I will say create vehicle. Tell me, which vehicle do you want? Sorry? I want a bike. Okay, I will write here as bike. But it is giving me an error. Can you tell me why? Sir, because vehicle factory is not returning anything, sir. I will say, boss, I want you to return a vehicle. I want you to return vehicle. I will import vehicle. Here simply I will write here as null initial. Okay. Okay, sir. Here I am asking vehicle factory dot create a vehicle called as bike. So what should vehicle factory create vehicle method do when I ask for bike? I am asking for bike. What should it do? Sir, one bike it should create and give, sir. It should create one bike and give. Will you agree with me? So I will say here, boss, if what? Whatever is given to me in the vehicle type, if this vehicle type dot equals, I will write equals ignore case. Because somebody can ask for a capital BIK or somebody will ask everything in lowercase. I will say equals ignore case. What is that they are going to ask for? Bike. If they ask for bike, then what should your class do? It should create an object of new bike class. Once it is creating an object of the bike class, what should I be doing with this bike object? Return the bike object, sir. Are you able to understand this? I have created a new bike and I am trying to return the new bike. So then this can be removed. The reason why I have written it is because if it becomes a else case, what will happen? So that is the whole reason why I have written it as return null. Okay, sir. If it is bike, then I will give a bike object. What if it is not bike, sir? Now I will check again. Copy this. Else, if vehicle type dot equals car. If it is equals to car, create a car object, import the car class. In the same way, sir, it is not bike, it is not car, sir. In the same way, if it is equals to lorry, then create a new lorry object. I hope you are able to understand this. In the else case, then what should I do, sir? In the else case, I will simply write it here as return null. Is this clear? Hello? Now, tell me, if I go to the main method, should I be asking for, should I be creating a new object of car, or should I simply ask for the car object? Simply write here as car, sir. In the same way, here I will simply write here as lorry. Is this clear? Hello? And now, if I try to execute my code, the output is still the same, but here, did I try to hide the name of the classes? What hides, sir? You removed the class name, same name you have put in the message, in the string. That also I can change if I want. I will simply say, for bike I will say it as black. For car I will write it as green. For lorry I will write it as red. Now I will go to the vehicle factory. I will say black, green, red. Correct? If I go to the main method, if I try to execute it, the output will again remain the same. But this time tell me, in the main method, are you able to see the class names? Sir, interface name I cannot do anything, but Class names are you able to see? Class names are not given out, sir, which means did I try to maintain the code confidentiality? Yes. So this concept is only called as a factory design pattern. What is this class doing here? Vehicle factory, what is it doing? It is creating an object. When? Assume that I will say give me black. Will it create an object of lorry and give me? Whichever object the programmer will ask, that object it is trying to create and give. Will you agree with me? Hello? So one thing that you need to understand is whatever is the design pattern called as the factory design pattern, it is responsible to create objects and give it to the programmer whenever the programmer asks it. Whenever the programmer is going to ask for an object, it is going to create an object, give it to the programmer, saying, programmer, you asked for car, take this car. You asked for bike, take this bike. So what is it? It is just like a factory. Assume that there is an electronics factory. You will go and say, hey, I want a TV. The factory will manufacture a TV, give it to you. You will ask, I want a fridge. It is going to create a fridge and give it to you. You will ask, I want a refrigerator, a washing machine. It will create a washing machine, give it to you. So, whichever device or whatever object you ask, the factory will manufacture and give you. The same way the factory design pattern is going to manufacture the object, give it to you. See, for anybody who is looking at the main method, when he calls black, he needs an object which is going at 60 kilometers per hour. If he calls green, he wants an object which is going at 80 kilometers or 70 kilometers, 75 kilometers. When he asks for an object red, it should go at 90. How is it getting manufactured? Does it really bother you? You will say, I want a 70-inch plasma TV. If you get the TV, you are happy. How did you manufacture it? LED, screen from where did you bring? Other devices, other electronic devices inside it, the circuit from where did you bring? Does it really matter to you? If I turn on the TV, is the TV working? I am happy. I hope you are able to understand this. In the same way, from which class did you create the object? How does it really matter to the end user? If you press that run button, is the code working fine or no? That is what will matter to you. Hello? Are you able to understand this, yes or no? So, what is your factory design pattern going to do? It is a programming approach where the classes are masked. I am not displaying or I am not exposing the classes which I have in my application. Without telling the user what classes are there, whichever object he wants, he can call that object, he will get the object for him. I hope you are able to understand this. So just imagine now, while the programmer was writing, he is now calling for a vehicle called as blue. Do I have a vehicle blue? I don't have a vehicle blue. Then what can I do? If I run my code, what will happen? There will be a null pointer exception because blue is not there. Vehicle 3 is null. You are calling the drive method. Vehicle 3 is null. How are you going to call the drive method is what it says. Correct? Huh? So whenever there is an null, maybe I will say here, if you want, you can create one exception. You can create an exception of your own and you can throw that exception. So maybe I will create one exception here by saying throw new. Is there any exception? Illegal argument exception. There is a string which it will expect. I will say invalid vehicle, and then I will say whatever is the vehicle name or vehicle type I will display. Are you able to understand this? Which means I am saying, boss, whatever the vehicle type you have sent is an invalid vehicle. So you can see, I will go to the main method, I will run my code. So you can see it says there is an exception in the thread called as main. What type of exception? Illegal argument exception. Why was this exception? Because you sent blue, which was an invalid vehicle. I hope you are able to understand this. So what is that you are doing here? You are hiding the names of the classes so that the end user need not know all the names of the classes, what code is there. He need not really know it. The end user just wants to see if the code is working or not. Right? This is about something called as a factory design pattern. So I hope factory design pattern you have understood what you will be doing here. So whenever you have a program, whenever you want to create objects for any class, you will be writing a separate class. You will be creating a factory where all the objects will be created based on the input string. If you say green, car will be created. If you say red, lorry will be created. If you say black, bike will be created. So based on what string input you will give, such an object is what you will be getting in the end. I hope you are able to understand this. Any confusion here? Sure? Alright then. So having understood this, I want to move on to the next design pattern. So before we get into the next design pattern, one small example I will take. So let us assume I have one class here, which I will, interface here, which I will call it as services. So there are various classes trying to implement this services interface. What are these classes? Maybe class 1, class 2 and class 3. So I will say the first class is an Indian Army class. The second is an Indian Navy and Indian Air Force. So in this way I have few classes which are implementing an interface called as the services. So now I will also have one class called as the Prime Minister class. I have a class called as the Prime Minister class, in which I will have one variable called as the name variable, where I would have set the name as Namu. Right? So I have a class called as the Prime Minister, in which there is a variable name. Right? So now in the services interface there is one method which I will call it as address Prime Minister. There is a method called as the address Prime Minister method. And what will this address Prime Minister method do? It will in the Indian Army will override the address Prime Minister. It is going to create an object of PM. It will display the PM dot name. It will display the PM dot name. In the same way, Indian Navy also will address the PM. Indian Navy will also create an object of PM. Then it will say PM dot name. In the same way, address PM method in Indian Air Force, create an object of PM, PM dot name. I will try to display it. Code is very simple, looks very simple. Yes or no? Let me try to write this code and execute the code. Okay. So, just to give you a solution or just to convert the same thing into a program, I will create one new class here. So, new project first. So, right click, new, Java project. I will say services EXMP. So I have a project called as services EXMP. Sir, what is there inside this? Sir, maybe I am going to first create one interface called as services inside com.tab.services or com.tab.gov I will say. Then I will try to finish it. What is there inside this services? Inside the services I have a void address PM method. Address PM method. Okay, sir. Then I will create multiple classes. So I will create a class. Where is this class? com.tab.imp I will say, or com.tab.services. The first one is Indian Army, and I will say Indian Army implements services. I hope you are able to understand this. Similarly, inside the services, I will now create one more class, a new class called as Indian Navy, which also implements the services. And similarly, I will also have one more class, Indian Air Force, and Indian Air Force also implements the services. Right? Sir, what will each of these class do? So they have to address the PM, but PM or PM class only is not there. So I will now go to com.tab.gov. I will create a new class called as the Prime Minister class. So in this class called as the Prime Minister class, I will create one variable string name is equals to, I will write it here as Namo. Okay, sir, you have created a variable. How are you going to execute it? I will go to the Indian Army. Tell me, what is the Indian Army supposed to do now? In the address Prime Minister method, what should the Indian Army do now? Sorry? Sir, it should create the object of Prime Minister, call the Prime Minister name, sir. Will you agree with me? So I will say here as Prime Minister type PM is equals to new Prime Minister, and then I will say system.out.println PM dot I did not write a getters and all of it, directly PM dot name. So name, if it has to be visible, it should be public variable name. Okay, Indian Army has displayed the name. In the same way, will you agree with me? Indian Navy should also do the same thing, and Indian Air Force should also do the same thing. Yes. So all of them are creating the objects of Prime Minister, and they are trying to display the name of the Prime Minister. Now I will tell, maybe I will go to the main method. Where is the main method inside this project? I am going to create a new class, launch class, com.tab.main. So you can see here I have a class called as the launch class. Inside this launch class I have a main method. Sir, in the main method, what are we going to write, sir? I want to call the address Prime Minister method from Indian Army, Indian Navy and Indian Air Force. So how will I call those methods? Create an object of Indian Army, Indian Navy and Indian Air Force. Sir, can I do it? So I will say here as services type Indian Army is equals to new Indian Army. In the same way, I'll just copy this. I will say IN, IAF. IN is nothing but Indian Navy and Indian Air Force. I will import all of them. I have created the object of Indian Army, Indian Navy and Indian Air Force. Here I will say Indian Army dot address PM, Indian Navy dot address PM, Indian Air Force dot address PM. In this way I am calling the address PM method, right? Sir, address PM method you are calling, maybe. Let me go to the Indian Army first. Here I will say, instead of directly writing the name of the Prime Minister, I will simply write here by saying Army says PM is, and I am printing the name. In the same way, I will just copy this. I'll just copy this. I'll go to the Indian Navy. In the Indian Navy, I will say Navy says Prime Minister is the name of the Prime Minister. I hope you are able to understand this. In the same way, I will write here as Air Force. Sorry. Air Force, F-O-R-C-E-R. Air Force says the name of the Prime Minister is whatever is the name. I am trying to print it. So let me go to the launch.java. I will now try to run my code. So if I try to run my code, you can see Army says PM is Namo, Navy says PM is Namo, Air Force says PM is Namo, which means all the classes are saying it is the same Prime Minister. Will you agree with me? Hello? Now there is a small twist. When I am printing the name, will you agree with me? The name of the Prime Minister is the same. Yes? Which means, you tell me, Indian Army, Indian Navy, Indian Air Force, do they have the same Prime Minister or different Prime Ministers? Sir, forget about Indian Army, Navy and Air Force, sir. For us also, Prime Minister is only the same person, sir. Yes or no? But now, have a look at it. I will simply say, in the Indian Army, the Prime Minister is PM. Indian Navy, Prime Minister is PM. Indian Air Force, Prime Minister is PM. What is that I am trying to print now? Sorry? Am I printing the name? I am not printing the name, sir. I am simply trying to print PM. If I am trying to print PM, what will I be able to see? I will be able to see the object address. Will you agree with me? So tell me, according to Indian Navy, Indian Air Force, Indian Army, should it be a same object or different objects for different classes? What type of question, sir? There is only one person called as Narendra Modi and everybody considers him only as the Prime Minister, sir. Will you agree with me? Which means the address of the object should all be same. Let me see if I will run my code. Will the address of the objects be same or will they be different? Is the address same or different? Then does it mean for Indian Army there is one person who is the President, Prime Minister. For Indian Navy there is one more person who is the Prime Minister. For Indian Air Force there is one more person who is the Prime Minister. Is it three different people? I will create one more class here called as students. And I will say students also will address Prime Minister. You will create your own Prime Minister. You know, in Pakistan there is a place called as Baluchistan. I don't know if you have heard about it. They don't claim the Pakistan Prime Minister as their Prime Minister. They have their own Prime Minister. Sorry? Exactly. So, this program is like that only. Any class you write, they are creating their own Prime Minister. But in reality, is this the same? Sir, then you say Java is close to real life. Whatever you can do in real life, in Java you can do, sir. Now, everybody should have the same object, sir. Are you able to understand this? So, what is the problem that I am facing here is, will you agree with me? There is a class called as Prime Minister. Should there be one object for Prime Minister or multiple objects for Prime Minister? One object for Prime Minister. Will you agree with me? Should I have multiple objects like this? I should never have multiple objects for this class called as Prime Minister, sir. Which means your Prime Minister class should only have one object throughout the execution of the code. Your Prime Minister should only have one object throughout the execution of the program. Wherever you call or wherever you ask for Prime Minister, same object should be there. When I say same object, what does it mean? The reference address should be the same for every Prime Minister object. If I want to have a reference address or if I want to create a single object of Prime Minister throughout my program, then whatever the Prime Minister class I have to make it a singleton class. What is a singleton class? Singleton class is such a class. It only has one object or one instance created throughout the execution of the program. There is only one single instance created to the end of your application. Such a class is only called as a singleton class, and such a style of writing the code is only called as a singleton design pattern. Such style of writing the code is called as singleton design pattern. Sir, which means I now should avoid people to create objects. Sir, will you agree with me? Look at Indian Army. What is Indian Army doing? It has created its own Prime Minister object. Indian Navy is creating its own Prime Minister object. Indian Air Force is creating its own Prime Minister object. What should I do now? Is I should avoid people or avoid classes from creating an object of Prime Minister. Will you agree with me? If I want to avoid people from creating an object of a particular class, what should I do? Hello? I don't want anybody to create an object of a class. What can I do? Abstract a class. Why? Sir, as soon as you go to the Prime Minister and say Prime Minister is an abstract class, nobody will be allowed to create an object, sir. Yes or no? Now the question is, do you don't want objects for this Prime Minister class, or do you want one object? I want one object, sir. If you want one object, if I make it as abstract, anywhere will I be able to create an object of Prime Minister? Which means I cannot make it as abstract. Will you agree with me? So I'll remove this keyword called as abstract. And then what is the solution, sir? See, I don't want anybody to create an object. Look at this Indian Army. How is the Indian Army creating an object of Prime Minister? By calling the Prime Minister constructor. Can you see Indian Navy? Indian Navy is also calling the Prime Minister constructor. Your Indian Air Force is also calling the Prime Minister constructor. Will you agree with me? Did I write any Prime Minister constructor in my class called as the Prime Minister class? Then how are they able to call it? Sir, default constructor, zero parameterized default constructor is given, sir. Public constructor it is. Since the public default constructor is given to me, they are all able to call it and create an object. Will you agree with me? And now my question is, whatever this constructor, zero parameter constructor is there, I don't want anybody to access this zero parameter constructor. I don't want anybody to access this zero parameter constructor. Is there any option? Whether it is a class within the same package, class within a different package, is it an inheriting class? I really don't bother, but nobody should be able to implement, should be able to access Prime Minister. Sir, very simple. Go to the Prime Minister class, write one constructor called as the Prime Minister constructor. If you write this, Prime Minister constructor is visible to everybody? Or at least since you are using the default access modifier, it is visible to somebody within the same package. If I don't want it to be visible to anybody in the same package also, what can I do? Private. The question is, can I have a constructor which is private? Yes, I can have a constructor which is private. As soon as I make this constructor as private, it is only accessible within this class. Outside the class, it's not accessible. Will you agree with me? If it is not accessible outside the class, you can go to the Indian Army. You can see Indian Army saying, boss, Prime Minister is not accessible. You cannot call new Prime Minister, I will remove. Indian Navy will also say Prime Minister is not accessible, you cannot call Prime Minister. Indian Air Force will also say Prime Minister is not accessible, you cannot call Prime Minister. So the first step to achieve a singleton design pattern is create a private constructor. The first step to achieve singleton design pattern is to create a private constructor. Sir, you have created a private constructor here. What is the next thing, sir? Tell me, as soon as I create this constructor as a private, is this constructor visible to be anybody outside this class? It is not visible. Which means, tell me, any other class, can it create an object of Prime Minister now? Any other class, can it create an object of constructor? No, sir. Prime Minister constructor will never be accessible to them. Okay, this Prime Minister constructor is not accessible to outside classes. Is this Prime Minister constructor accessible to this class called as Prime Minister? It is accessible, which means if the class called as Prime Minister now decides to create an object of this Prime Minister class, can it create it? How will you create it? Very simple, sir. Right here by saying Prime Minister New Prime Minister object I will create, and whatever object I have, I will store it inside PM reference. What is PM? If somebody asks me, I will say Prime Minister. Are you able to understand this? I will say Prime Minister type PM is equal to new Prime Minister. Sir, as soon as I create this Prime Minister PM, there is one object for Prime Minister created. If anybody wants this object, they can ask the Prime Minister class will give it. For that one method I will write here as public Prime Minister PM is Prime Minister get PM method. What will the get PM method do? It will return the PM object. Is that clear? It is going to return the PM object. Hello? Okay, sir. It should now return the PM object. Now, how will I call this get PM method? So, very simple. I'll go to the Indian Army. Tell me, in the Indian Army, how will I call the get PM method? Sir, in order to call the get PM method, you have to create an object of Prime Minister and call, sir. It is a method. At the end of the day, you need to create an object and call. But that only I am restricting, sir. Nobody should create an object of Prime Minister. If nobody should create an object, but still they have to call a method, what should you name that method as? Static. Will you agree with me? So I will say here as public static get PM. As soon as I say get PM as a static method, there is some error. What is this error? Sir, static methods cannot refer a non-static context, sir. You can see here, if I just hover on it, it will say cannot make a static reference to the non-static field PM, which means PM, I now want to make it as a static. So I will say here as static and also private I will write. Private static Prime Minister PM is equals to new PM. Once I have written this, I will go to the Indian Army. I will say Prime Minister PRIME Prime Minister dot get PM method. In the same way, I will just copy this. I will go to the Indian Navy, paste it. Indian Air Force, I am going to paste it. And I will print PM dot name. I want to see whether the name is same for all the PM objects that I am going to get here. So I will try to print the name and see. I will now just save it. I will go to the launch.java. Now I will try to run my code. You can see the name is same. Sir, name previously also it was same only, sir. I am only worried about the address. Is the address same or no? Is something I want to understand, sir. I will just save it. I will go to the launch.java. I will run my code. Is the address same now? Which means whenever I ask for an object of the Prime Minister, single object is given to me. Hello? If you recollect your J2W application, how did you get this session? Request dot get session. Did you say new HTTP session? Which means internally in your HTTP session also, your session is referred as a singleton object. Wherever in your application you ask for a session, the same object is given to you. It is the same object which is given to you. So tell me now, whenever I want to write a program for a singleton design pattern, What is the first thing that I should remember? Create private constructor. And then, what is the second thing? Create an instance within the same class. I hope you're able to understand. Create an instance within the same class. What is the third step? Create a method to access object. Then fourth, make method static. Fifth, make object static. See, the reason is I made it as private static is because if it is static, directly that variable also I can call. But I did not wanted them to directly call the variable, so I made it as private static. I hope you are able to understand this. These are the steps that you will follow whenever you want to perform a singleton design pattern. So what is the problem here? I may come across instances where a single object for any class I want to create. In such a case, I should be making sure I write the code such that it follows a singleton design pattern. Any confusion with the singleton design pattern? Sure, no confusions? Alright. So, there were two different problems today. First problem was the class names were visible to everybody. So what I did, I made sure I created a factory. From the factory I was getting the objects. The second problem was I may come across some instances in my real life where for a class only one single object should be created, multiple objects should not be created. In such a class I will follow a design pattern called as the singleton design pattern. So one more thing, now I will go to the Prime Minister and I will say, a Prime Minister object, you have created one object, create one more Prime Minister PM1. So I have PM, PM1. I will write a similar method, I will say get PM, get PM1. Here I will say return PM1. So Indian Navy mostly, maybe let's assume Indian Navy is calling the get PM1 method. Tell me, should it be the same object or different object that the Indian Navy is going to get now? Same object? Let me see. Is it the same object or different? Why different objects, sir? You have written the code like that, sir. See, whenever I write the constructor as private, immediately it will not become a singleton object because in this class any number of objects you can create. But as a programmer, you should have a common understanding saying that only one object I should create. If I can create any number of objects, why did I do all this work then? Why did I make the constructor private? Why did I create an object within the class? Because I did all of these steps only to make sure there is a single object for any particular class. I hope you are able to understand this. If the programmer wants, he can create more such objects. But should he create? If he creates, doesn't make any sense, sir. I hope you are able to understand this. If the programmer wants, he can also give a public Prime Minister constructor accepting string name, and then he can say here as this dot name is equals to name. He can write it like this also. Now if the other classes, instead of calling get PM, if they start calling Prime Minister with parenthesis, they will be able to create different objects again. So to avoid it, the programmer should make sure he doesn't let anybody create an object by giving additional constructors or anything. I hope you understand this. Tell me, once I have written a zero parameterized constructor, will the compiler add any other constructor? Then I am safe at that point. Only thing is I should not be creating any other constructor so that there is a loose end to use it. I hope it is clear. Factory design pattern and singleton design pattern, I hope you have understood this. Yes? Alright, so for today I will halt this session here. So I want each one of you to go back, revise all the concepts. Because we'll have to start off with Hibernate. So Hibernate, when I tell Hibernate as a concept, you'll have to understand Hibernate is a replacement for your JDBC. Sir, JDBC was good, sir. Why did we have to replace it? Somebody is like, huh? Why did we have to replace JDBC, sir? Tell me, what was your problem in JDBC? Writing the code only was problem, sir. For inserting the data, this much lines I should write, sir. For retrieving the data, this much lines I should write, sir. To avoid that problem only, I have Hibernate. In Hibernate, to insert the data into the table, one line. If you write one line, your data is inserted into the table. If you write one line, your data is fetched from the table. When we start off with Hibernate, you will understand and you will be like, sir, you should have taught us Hibernate only first, sir. Simply we have learned JDBC, sir. But if you understand JDBC, if you understand the pain, then you will appreciate Hibernate. If something is given easily, you will not appreciate it. So you have to go through that entire process, and anyways, you will be questioned on JDBC also. Just because some concept is easy, you cannot say, sir, I will not learn this. For example, when you come to advanced Java is easier compared to core Java. Then can you skip core Java? That also is important, this also is important. Right? Some of you are like, sir, how is advanced Java easy, sir? For me it is Greek and Latin, sir. Create statement, prepared statement. See, here you don't have to write the code manually. You don't have to write any code at all. Simply go back today, try to sit down, analyze your advanced Java code. Know where you are creating objects. Everything you are asking from the internal classes only. Tell me, did I anywhere say, if I have to perform this operation, one big class I should write, this method should have all this logic? I am not writing any logic building here. Whatever are the internal classes only I am using. Imagine the same thing if you have to do with core Java. That internal classes you should sit and write. Inheritance, polymorphism, exception handling, all that you only have to write manually. But here, you don't have to write it. Somebody has written it and kept it ready. All you are doing is, you are going to use it. I hope you understand this. So, tomorrow there is a drive. How many of you have applied for it? There is an offline drive test on the drive portal. Nobody has applied? No? You're not watching the drive portal? Then when I say there is a drive, everybody is like, what drive? Some new word he is saying. What is it? So, see, keep track of it, because tomorrow there is an offline drive scheduled in the afternoon. So unfortunately our class is cancelled. Almost 500 or 400 students are there is what I heard. So it's an offline drive, client will be coming here. So also take it as a time to learn. Because we'll have to start off with Hibernate, come well prepared with JDBC, right? So anyways, then I'll halt this session here. I'll see you in the next.